Imagine you're staring at a blank canvas, right? But instead of a paintbrush, someone just hands you 300 completely unlabeled buttons.
Oh yeah, and a dozen hidden drop-down menus.
Exactly, and you have this lingering, totally irrational fear that clicking the wrong icon is going to, like, delete your computer's entire operating system.
It is genuinely terrifying. That is the exact visceral feeling of opening professional digital design software for the very first time.
It really doesn't look like an art studio at all. I mean, it looks like the cockpit of a fighter jet.
Oh, for sure. You just want to, put some text over a picture.
Right.
But suddenly you're staring at histograms and channels and paths, and you feel like you need a degree in avionics just to decipher the toolbars.
Which is exactly why we're stripping all of that away today. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way.
Glad to be here. We are definitely not doing a button-clicking tutorial today.
No, not at all. We are going to answer a much deeper, overarching question for you. How do designers actually construct these believable, complex digital realities without permanently destroying their original source materials?
Right, we are exploring the absolute core DNA of digital imaging, which honestly all boils down to one fundamental concept.
Layers.
Exactly.
Layers. And we're basing our entire analysis today on a foundational resource. Specifically, we're looking at Chapter 04, which is called Layer Basics, from the book Adobe Photoshop CC Classroom in a book 2018.
It is honestly the perfect crucible for this discussion.
It really is. And I want to make sure you can follow along with this architecture,
Yeah.
if you want to see the visual mechanics for yourself.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, so you can buy the book by scanning the QR code of the book link provided in the description below. Having that reference in front of you while we tear down the theory is just a massive advantage.
Oh, absolutely. And explicitly, if you want more of these technical design breakdowns and career building content, make sure to follow us.
Yes, please do. We are going to be dissecting the why and the how of this industry a lot more.
Because look, what is easy to Google, right? Like, what button do I press? That's a 10-second search.
Yeah, anyone can find that.
But understanding why that button manipulates the pixel matrix the way it does well, that is what makes you a professional.
Okay, let's unpack this. To ground this in reality, we are going to trace the life cycle of a specific practical project from the book.
The Hawaiian postcard project.
Right. The goal is to build a vintage-style Hawaiian travel postcard. But we aren't drawing this from scratch, are we?
No, we are compositing. We're taking a raw photograph of a pineapple, and we need to seamlessly integrate a separate photo of a beach.
Plus some isolated tropical flowers, a vintage postal ink stamp, and some styled typography.
It's a classic compositing challenge. You're taking completely disparate elements, shot in different lighting conditions, and forcing them to exist in the exact same mathematical space.
You are basically playing God with pixels.
You really are.
Yeah.
You have to dictate depth and lighting and physical interaction between elements that have literally never shared a physical room together.
So let's start at zero, like the absolute foundation. A lot of old school instructors use the overhead projector analogy.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, working with layers is basically like taking clear sheets of acetate film, right? You draw different parts of your image on separate sheets and stack them up on the projector glass.
Exactly. The light shines through the clear parts, but the ink on the top sheet blocks the light from the ink on the bottom sheet.
It's a classic for a reason.
It is, though. I actually often think about it more in terms of modern digital cell animation, or even like architectural blueprints.
Oh, blueprints is a good way to look at it.
Yeah, imagine several sheets of drafting paper. On sheet 1, you draw the plumbing. On sheet 2, the electrical grid. On sheet 3, the interior walls.
And when you stack them perfectly, you see the entire house.
Right. But if the client decides they want to move a sink, you don't have to erase the interior walls to get to the plumbing.
You just pull out the plumbing sheet, make the adjustment, and slide it back in.
The whole concept is isolation. You are isolating variables so they can be modified non-destructively.
Okay, the isolation is the superpower, I get that. But when you create a brand new file to start this Hawaiian postcard, or when you open that raw photograph of the pineapple,
You don't get a transparent sheet of film at the bottom of the stack.
no, you get a layer called background with a capital B, and it has a little padlock icon on it.
Yes, the infamous locked background.
I have always found this incredibly counterintuitive. I mean, if the whole philosophy of the software is flexible, transparent isolation, why do we start with a layer that is rigidly locked, completely opaque, and entirely inflexible?
it does feel like a contradiction.
My instinct is to just want a completely transparent void to start building my universe,
I completely understand that instinct, but it's actually a vital bridge between the digital environment and physical reality.
Okay, how so?
We have to consider how software allocates memory and also how the human eye perceives color.
So there's a technical reason and a biological reason.
Exactly. First, let's look at the computational side. A truly transparent layer requires the software to calculate an alpha channel.
Which is what exactly?
It's the mathematical data that tells the screen exactly what percentage of a pixel is see-through. An opaque background layer has no alpha channel. It is pure red, green, and blue data.
Oh, so historically, locking that base layer saved massive amounts of RAM and processing power.
Right, which was absolutely crucial in the early days of digital imaging when computers were incredibly slow.
So it's basically a legacy performance hack?
Partially, yeah, but its modern utility is actually rooted in color theory and professional output. Think about traditional painting.
Like oils on canvas.
Exactly. A painter doesn't start applying oils to empty, invisible space. They stretch a canvas and apply a base coat of gesso, usually white or a neutral gray.
Right, to prep the surface.
That opaque base provides a grounded visual reference point. In software, if you have true transparency, it's represented by that high contrast gray and white checkerboard pattern.
Ugh, I hate staring at that checkerboard.
Everyone does. If you were trying to perfectly color balance the delicate pinks of our tropical flower against the yellows of the pineapple,
Yeah.
staring at a harsh geometric checkerboard underneath it all will completely destroy your optic nerve's ability to judge relative color and contrast.
That makes total sense. So the opaque white background layer acts as your digital gesso. It gives your eyes a neutral resting state.
Exactly.
Okay, the visual perception argument makes complete sense to me. If I'm color grading, that checkerboard is just visual noise. But what about the final output? Say I finish the postcard and send it to a commercial printer.
Well, that is the ultimate reason the background layer exists today. It is your structural safety net.
How does it keep me safe?
If you build a complex composite of like 50 transparent layers, there is a very high probability that somewhere in that stack, you accidentally left a 1-pixel gap.
A tiny hole where there is no artwork.
Right, and if your file has a transparent base, that gap translates to literally no data.
And printers don't like no data.
When a commercial printing press receives no data, the RIP software, the processor that translates digital files to physical ink dots, might completely panic.
What happens when it panics?
It might print a glaring white hole right in the middle of your image, or it might crash the print spooler entirely. Having a locked, opaque background layer guarantees a solid wall of pixel data at the absolute bottom of the document.
It ensures there are no vacuum gaps in your final product. I
Yeah.
get it. So it's essentially a mandatory floor.
Exactly, a floor.
But wait, what if I actually want to break the floor? Like, what if my ultimate goal is to export a PNG of a pineapple with no background so I can put it on a website?
The software doesn't permanently trap you. It's a default protection, not a prison sentence.
So how do I break out?
You can just click that little padlock icon next to the word background. The padlock vanishes, the name changes to something generic like layer 0, and suddenly it gains an alpha channel.
It just becomes a normal, flexible sheet of acetate.
Precisely. You can unlock it, move it, scale it, or delete it entirely.
And what if I do the opposite? What if I have a chaotic file with transparency everywhere and I want to establish a brand new floor?
You can select any regular layer, go up to your top menus and choose layer, then new, then background from layer.
And that just glues it to the bottom?
Yep, the software will immediately strip away its alpha channel, fill any transparent pixels with your background color, and lock it to the absolute bottom of the Z-axis.
Okay, so it's really about understanding the rigid mechanics so you know exactly when and why to disable them.
Exactly.
All right, so we've established our base reality. We have our postcard working file containing the pineapple resting on an opaque background. But a single layer is just a photograph.
Right. To build a composite, we need to introduce chaos. We need more elements.
So we have this entirely separate file called beach.psd. My natural inclination, seeing two windows open on my monitor, is to just grab the beach photo and shove it into the postcard file.
Which is exactly what you should do.
Wait, really? Do I have to do some convoluted file import merge process first? Or can I literally just drag the pixels from one monitor space to the other?
You can absolutely just drag it. And understanding how the software handles that transfer is actually fascinating.
Okay, walk me through the physical action.
You arrange your workspace so both images are visible side by side. You grab the Move tool, which is essentially your physical hand in the digital space.
The little crosshairs icon.
Right. You click anywhere on the beach photo, drag it across the UI, and release your mouse over the postcard window.
But what is actually happening in the computer's memory when I do that? Because I'm moving visual information from one discrete file architecture into a totally different one.
When you drag and drop like that, the software reads the pixel data from the source file, holds it temporarily in your system's RAM, and then injects it into the destination file's mathematical matrix.
And it makes a new layer automatically.
Instantly. It auto-generates a brand new layer to house that data. You don't have to pre-create an empty layer to receive it at all.
That is slick.
But there's a vital workflow efficiency here that the book points out. If you just drag and drop haphazardly, the new image will land exactly where your cursor was when you let go.
Which is usually off-center and messy.
Right. But if you hold down the Shift key while you release the mouse, the software intercepts that command and calculates the exact geometric center of the destination canvas.
Oh, wow. So it perfectly aligns the center point of the incoming beach photo with the center point of the postcard canvas.
Perfectly. It is a massive time saver.
Because otherwise you drop it, you have to zoom way out, grab it again, and try to eyeball it to the middle using those little pink smart guides.
Exactly. Holding Shift just snaps it instantly to center. It's the difference between fighting the software and directing it.
I love that. So now that new layer lands in your Layers panel, but it doesn't just float to the very top automatically, does it?
No, the software has a strict protocol for that. It will insert the incoming layer directly above whatever layer was actively highlighted in your Layers panel at that exact moment.
Ah, okay. So if I had the background layer selected, the beach lands between the background and the pineapple.
Exactly.
But if I had the pineapple selected, it lands on top of the pineapple. This brings us to the control center itself, right? The Layers panel.
A brain of the operation.
If a user is going to spend a career in this software, they are going to spend like 80% of their time staring at this one specific panel docked on the right side of their screen.
The Layers panel is the architectural blueprint of your entire reality. It lists every element from top to bottom.
It's got those tiny real-time thumbnails of what pixels exist on that specific plane.
Yes, and it houses the lock icons, the opacity sliders, the blending modes, and on the far left of every layer there is the eye icon, the visibility toggle.
Oh man, the eye icon is arguably the most powerful debugging tool in the software.
Oh, absolutely.
When a composite gets really complicated and something just looks wrong, you just start poking those eyes. Click the eye, the layer turns off. Click the empty box, the layer turns back on. You isolate variables instantly.
It is basically the scientific method applied to design. You turn off the typography, you turn off the flowers, you turn off the stamp.
Until you find exactly which layer is casting the weird shadow that is ruining your composition.
Exactly. But this level of organization relies entirely on the user not being chaotic themselves.
What do you mean?
Well, when we dragged that beach photo in, the software auto-generated the layer and gave it a default name. If it was the only layer in the source document, it usually comes in named Layer 1.
Right. And this is where the industry professionals violently separate themselves from the amateurs.
Oh, yes, they do.
Because it is so easy when you are moving fast to just leave it as layer 1. In our postcard project, we have maybe 6 or 7 layers total. I can glance at the thumbnail, see the sand, and know it's the beach.
Right. So you're thinking, why bother?
Exactly. Do I really need to double-click the word layer 1 and meticulously type out BEACH?
In a vacuum with 6 layers? Honestly, no. But software habits are deeply ingrained, and they scale exponentially.
I feel a lecture coming on.
It's an important one. In a professional studio, an advertising agency, or a matte painting department, files do not have 6 layers.
How many do they have?
A high-end automotive retouching file might have 400 individual layers.
400! That is insane!
Separate layers for the tire gloss, the rim highlights, the reflection of the sky on the windshield, the ambient shadow under the chassis.
That sounds like a complete nightmare to navigate.
It is an absolute nightmare if the layers are named Layer 1, Layer 24 Copy 3, Layer 89 Final.
Oh my god, I've seen files exactly like that.
Everyone has. And when you are working in a collaborative pipeline, say, you finish the color pass and hand the file off to the typography department, an unorganized layers panel is an act of professional sabotage.
That is a great way to put it, professional sabotage.
It forces your colleague to spend an hour clicking icons just to figure out what is going on.
So, naming your layers systematically, using color labels, grouping them into folders.
It is the digital equivalent of sweeping the floor of the woodshop before you leave for the day.
Yeah.
It is fundamental, professional respect. It is version control at the micro level.
Okay. The hygiene lecture is received. I will double-click and name the layer Beach. So now we have our elements organized and named.
Excellent.
Looking at the panel from top to bottom, we have our postage ink stamp layer, the Hawaii text, the flower, the beach, the pineapple, and the background. The panel is a direct representation of the z-axis, isn't it?
Exactly. The X and Y axes are your horizontal and vertical coordinates on the canvas. The layers panel dictates the z-axis, which is depth, what is closest to the viewer and what is furthest away.
It's basically spatial logic. If the Hawaii text layer is sitting higher up in the list than the pineapple layer,
And they happen to physically overlap on the canvas.
right, then the text will obscure the pineapple. It's blocking the line of sight. But what if we want to change that architecture? Our beach layer is currently trapped between the pineapple and the flower. What if we want it higher up in the hierarchy?
The interface handles this via direct physical manipulation. You click the beach layer in the panel, hold down your mouse button, and literally drag the layer up the list.
And as you drag, the software gives you visual feedback, right?
Yes, it renders a thick horizontal line between the other layers, giving you a visual preview of exactly where it will snap into place. You drag it above the flower, release the mouse, and the z-axis instantly recalculates.
The beach is now physically closer to the viewer than the flower. It's like shuffling a deck of cards, but the cards are transparent.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, so we've established the physical order of our digital universe. We've shuffled the transparent cards perfectly, but right now, looking at the canvas, they don't look like a cohesive reality.
No, they look like a scrapbook.
Exactly. They look like distinct digital stickers with hard edges slapped on top of each other. Like the black ink of the vintage postal stamp is sitting on top of the pink flower, but it's completely opaque black.
It feels entirely disconnected from the surface it's supposed to be printed on.
So how do we move from a stack of stickers to actual believable interaction between these elements?
We have to dictate how the pixels on different z-planes chemically interact with one another. We have to introduce the physics of light.
Physics of lay, I love that.
And the bluntest, most foundational tool for that is opacity.
Opacity is essentially the density dial, right? If an element is at 100% opacity, the pixels are fully solid, they block everything behind them.
Right.
But in the case of our vintage postmark, a real rubber stamp doesn't deposit an impenetrable block of pure carbon black ink.
Exactly. The ink is thin, it settles into the texture of the paper, and the color of the paper pushes through.
So how do we mimic that?
We select the postage layer, locate the opacity slider at the top right of the layers panel, and drag it down to 25%.
Mathematically, what do you do in there?
You are recalculating the alpha channel. You are telling the software, for every pixel on this layer, reduce its visibility value to a quarter of its original strength, and allow 75% of the RGB values from the layers beneath it to bleed through.
The visual result is pretty immediate. The stark black ink fades into a soft charcoal gray, and more importantly, the vibrant pink petals and green leaves of the flower underneath become visible right through the stamp.
It creates a sudden sense of physical integration. The stamp no longer feels like a sticker floating above the image. It feels like it has been physically pressed onto the surface.
Opacity is an incredible tool for mimicking physical media, but as you said, it's a blunt instrument. It is a universal volume knob. It reduces the presence of the entire layer evenly, regardless of the color or luminance of the pixels involved.
Right, which is why we have to talk about the next level, where digital compositing truly leaps past physical darkroom techniques, is in the realm of blending modes.
Oh man, this is the deep end of the pool. Blending modes.
It really is.
I have to confess, when I first started out, I treated the blending modes drop-down menu like a slot machine.
Oh, I think we all did.
I would just highlight a layer and rapidly scroll down the list with my arrow keys. Normal, dissolve, darken, multiply, color burn. Just watching the canvas flash wildly until something accidentally looked cool.
That is the universal beginner experience. It feels like applying random Instagram filters.
But they aren't filters, are they?
Not at all. Blending modes are mathematical algorithms. They govern exactly how the numeric color values of a top layer chemically react with the numeric color values of the layers directly beneath them.
Okay, let's break down the math. By default, every layer is set to normal blending mode. What is the math of normal?
The math of normal is total replacement. If a pixel on the top layer has an RGB value of pure red and the pixel below it is pure blue, the normal algorithm simply says, ignore the blue, display the red.
It is spatial dominance.
Exactly. But the moment you select a different blending mode, The software stops replacing pixels and starts combining them.
Let's use the pineapple layer as a case study for this. The raw photo of the pineapple we're using is honestly a bit flat. The lighting is dull, the yellows are a bit muted.
We want it to look punchy, textured, and vibrant.
Now, a beginner might reach for the brightness contrast sliders or try to paint in highlights manually, but there is a compositing trick that relies entirely on blending modes, right?
Yes. We duplicate the pineapple layer entirely, so we have pineapple sitting directly on top of the original pineapple.
In normal mode, this achieves absolutely nothing. 100% opaque image covering an identical 100% opaque image looks exactly the same.
But then we target that duplicate layer and we change its blending mode from normal to overlay.
And the change is violent. The pineapple suddenly explodes with contrast.
It really pops.
The deep shadows between the scales of the fruit get significantly darker and richer. The highlights on the tips of the leaves get brighter. The yellow color becomes deeply saturated. It's like we suddenly turned on a harsh directional studio light.
It's a dramatic shift.
How did stacking the image on top of itself and selecting overlay do that?
Overlay is a complex piece of math designed to dramatically increase contrast while preserving the midtones. Here's what the algorithm is doing under the hood.
Lay it on me.
It looks at every single pixel on the bottom layer. If the pixel is lighter than 50% gray, the algorithm applies a screen blending calculation, which makes it even lighter.
Okay.
If the pixel is darker than 50% gray, the algorithm applies a multiply calculation, which makes it even darker.
And what if it's exactly 50% gray?
If the pixel is exactly 50% gray, it is mathematically ignored. It drops out completely.
So by putting a copy of the pineapple over itself in overlay mode, the dark shadows of the duplicate layer are telling the dark shadows of the original layer to plunge deeper toward pure black.
Yes.
And the bright highlights of the duplicate are telling the original highlights to push closer to pure white. It is mathematically multiplying the contrast against itself.
Precisely. It is a self-amplifying loop based on luminance. This is exactly how high-end retouchers dodge and burn textures without having to painstakingly paint every shadow by hand. They use the image's own inherent mathematical data to enhance its volume.
That is brilliant. Let's go back to our postmark layer. We dropped the opacity to 25%, which made it see-through, but it still looked a little flat.
Right, just looked like faint gray pixels sitting over the flower.
But changing its blending mode from normal to multiply completely alters how the ink behaves.
Multiply is the undisputed king of compositing. If you understand no other blending mode, you absolutely must understand multiply.
Why is it so important?
It is designed to simulate physical subtractive color mixing, like printing cyan, magenta, and yellow ink onto a piece of white paper.
I always think about it like drawing with colored markers.
That's a great visual.
If I take a bright yellow marker and draw a thick line on a piece of sketch paper, and then I take a dark blue marker and draw right over that exact same spot, what happens?
The physical ink chemicals mix.
Exactly. They absorb more light, and the spot turns dark green. It gets darker. No matter how many different colored markers I stack on top of each other, the resulting mark will always get darker and closer to muddy black. It will never, under any circumstances, get lighter.
That is a perfect, scientifically accurate analogy. Multiply simulates the absorption of light. Mathematically, the software takes the RGB color values of the top layer, multiplies them by the RGB values of a bottom layer, and divides the result by 255.
Whoa, okay, wait. Divide by 255. Why that specific number?
Because in standard 8-bit digital color, color channels are measured on a scale from 0 to 255. 0 is pure black. 255 is pure white.
Okay, I'm with you.
So if your top layer has a pure white pixel, which is a value of 255, the formula is the bottom pixel value multiplied by 255 divided by 255. The 255s cancel out.
Wait, so the result is just the original bottom pixel value?
Entirely. In multiply mode, pure white mathematically disappears. It is the neutral element. It is completely invisible. It has zero darkening power.
That is wild.
Conversely, if your top layer has a pure black pixel, a value of 0, the formula is bottom pixel value multiplied by 0 divided by 255. The result is 0, pure black.
So black stays pitch black, white completely vanishes, and every gray or colored pixel in between mathematically darkens the pixels below it based on its specific value.
Exactly. So when we set our vintage postmark to multiply, the black ink of the stamp aggressively darkens the pink flower beneath it, but the lighter areas of the stamp effectively vanish, letting the raw color of the flower dominate.
The ink stops floating over the surface and chemically embeds itself into the pixels of the surface.
Yes.
Okay, understanding the algebra is fascinating, but it also sounds exhausting. There are nearly 30 different blending modes in that drop-down menu. Linear burn, color dodge, hard mix, exclusion.
It's a lot of math to memorize.
If I'm on a deadline, I cannot sit there calculating 8-bit fractions in my head. Is there a professional shortcut to navigating this, or do I just go back to my slot machine method?
You definitely don't need to know the algebra for every mode. The software actually gives you a visual cheat sheet right in the menu, but honestly, most people never notice it.
A cheat sheet? Where?
If you open the blending modes dropdown, you'll see thin horizontal gray lines separating the modes into distinct clusters or neighborhoods. These clusters actually group the algorithms by their primary function.
Ah, so they are categorized by intent.
Yes. The first block is the darken group. Darken, multiply, color burn, linear burn. Every mode in this neighborhood will only ever make your image darker. White will always drop out.
So you use this neighborhood when you want to add shadows, burn in textures, or composite dark ink over paper.
Exactly. Then, the next block is the lighten group. Lighten, screen, color dodge, linear dodge. This is the exact mathematical inverse.
So if multiply is like layering dark markers on paper, what is the physical analogy for the lighten group?
The lighten group mimics additive light. It's like walking into a pitch black room and aiming 2 digital projectors at the exact same spot on the wall. The physics of light dictate that where the 2 beams overlap, the result gets brighter.
So in this group, pure black becomes completely invisible.
Exactly. The algorithm for screen blending mode actually inverts the values, multiplies them, and then inverts the result back.
That sounds complicated.
The practical outcome is that black vanishes, white stays white, and everything else brightens the image.
Give me a real-world example of using screen.
Say you have a photograph of a lens flare or a fiery explosion shot against a pure black night sky, and you want to drop it over your Hawaiian beach. You don't spend 3 hours meticulously trying to cut out the complex, wispy flames.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. Instead, you just drop the photo in, set the blending mode to screen, and the black sky instantly evaporates, leaving only the pure glowing light composited perfectly over your beach.
That feels like cheating. It's so powerful. So we have a darken group, a lighten group.
Then the third major block is the contrast group. Overlay, soft light, hard light, vivid light. These modes perform complex S-curve math. They drop out 50% middle gray, darken the darks, and lighten the lights.
You go to this neighborhood when you want to punch up textures or integrate elements with harsh lighting.
Right. Finally, the bottom groups deal with pure color math, allowing you to change the hue or saturation of a layer without altering its fundamental brightness or physical texture.
So the professional workflow isn't randomly clicking 30 options, it's identifying the problem. Like, I need this explosion to only add light. You immediately navigate to the lighten block and test the 4 options there until one looks perfect.
It's informed experimentation. You narrow the variables based on the physics of what you were trying to achieve.
This changes everything. Okay, so our layers are stacked on the correct z-axis, and they are chemically reacting via blending modes. We are building a cohesive reality. But what about spatial reality? When we dragged that beach photo in, it just landed dead center. What if it's massive and covers the whole canvas? Or what if we want it to look like a slightly crooked Polaroid picture casually tossed onto the composition? We need to manipulate the physical space of the layer itself.
You need to access the free transform protocol. This is activated via Edit, then Free Transform, or the incredibly common keyboard shortcut, Control-T or Command-T on a Mac.
When you trigger Free Transform, the software visually locks in on the active layer. It draws a thin bounding box entirely around the perimeter of the opaque pixels on that layer.
And it places tiny anchor squares handles on all 4 corners and the midpoints of the sides.
Those handles are your physical interface with the layer's geometric data, right?
Exactly. You grab a corner handle and pull it outward. The software recalculates the layer to be larger. You push it inward, it scales down.
And what if you want to rotate it?
If you hover your cursor just a few pixels outside of a corner handle, the cursor transforms into a curved, double-headed arrow. That's the rotation tool. You click and drag in a circular motion, and the entire layer rotates on its center axis.
So for our postcard, we grab a corner handle, push inward to scale the beach photo down to about half the size of the canvas, and then hover outside the corner and give it a slight, maybe 15-degree rotation so it rests at a jaunty angle.
But here is a critical interface friction point that traps a lot of beginners.
Oh, wow.
While that bounding box is active, you are essentially locked in a sandbox mode. The software freezes almost all other functions. You can't paint, you can't add text, you can't use filters. You are in a state of suspended mathematical animation.
Right, because the software is showing you a real-time, low-resolution preview of what the transformation will look like, but it hasn't actually executed the final, heavy mathematical recalculation of every pixel.
Exactly. The software is waiting for your authorization. To finalize the math, you must commit the transformation.
How do you do that?
You do this by pressing the Enter key, or by clicking the small checkmark icon in the options bar. Once you commit, the bounding box vanishes. The software grinds the numbers, a process called interpolation, and the pixels are permanently redrawn at their new size and rotation.
Let's talk about that word permanently and the concept of interpolation, because this leads to one of the most devastating mistakes a designer can make.
Yes, it does.
Let's say I take that beach photo, use Free Transform to scale it all the way down to the size of a tiny postage stamp, and hit Enter. The software interpolates that data.
Yes. To make the image that small, the software has to literally throw away 90% of the original pixel data. It deletes that information to create the smaller footprint.
And then 10 minutes later, the client says, actually, I want the beach photo to be massive. Make it the main background.
This is where it hurts.
If I hit Free Transform again, grab the corner of that tiny postage stamp size beach and stretch it back up to fill the whole screen, it looks horrific.
It looks like a blurred, pixelated mosaic. Because the high-resolution data is entirely gone. When you scale it back up, the software only has the tiny amount of data left in that postage stamp.
So it just invents data.
To fill the massive new space, the interpolation algorithm just has to guess. It duplicates adjacent pixels, creating a soft, muddy, destructive mess.
This is destructive editing. We destroyed the source material.
We did.
But earlier in the project, when we brought in the second flower image, let's call it flower 2, we dragged it into the file, and the software did something different. It brought it in as a smart object. What is the mechanical difference between a standard pixel layer and a smart object?
A smart object is the ultimate defense against destructive transformation. Think of a standard pixel layer as a wet painting. Every time you manipulate it, you smear the paint permanently.
Okay, and a smart object.
A smart object is like taking that wet painting, putting it perfectly flat inside a hermetically sealed titanium vault, and working with a live video feed of the painting instead.
Okay, explain the vault concept.
When you convert a layer to a smart object, the software takes all of the original high-resolution source data and embeds it deeply into the file architecture, untouched.
So it's hiding the original file.
Yes. The layer you see in the panel, which gets a little special icon on its thumbnail, is essentially just a dynamic proxy. It's a mirror reflecting the data inside the vault.
So if I scale that smart object proxy down to the size of a postage stamp and hit Enter,
The visual representation shrinks, but the high-resolution data inside the vault remains absolutely pristine.
and if I change my mind and scale it back up to fill the canvas.
The software just goes back to the vault, references the pristine 4K original data, and renders a perfectly crisp, mathematically perfect full-size image.
That is amazing.
You can scale it up, scale it down, distort it, warp it 100 times in a row, and you will never ever lose a single original pixel of quality.
That is an incredible safety net. Why wouldn't I just make every single layer a smart object immediately?
Because storing perfect, encapsulated high-resolution data for every single element requires an enormous amount of RAM and hard drive space. Your file size will just skyrocket.
Oh, right. Performance issues.
Also, because the pixels are locked in the vault, you cannot perform direct pixel-level editing on a smart object canvas. You can't just grab a paintbrush tool and draw a mustache on a smart object.
How do you edit it then?
To do that, you have to double-click the smart object, which physically opens the vault in a new temporary workspace, paint the mustache there, save it, and let it update the proxy in your main file.
It introduces a layer of abstraction that is totally necessary for transformation, but tedious if you just want to quickly erase a dust speck.
It's a massive trade-off.
Yeah.
Extreme flexibility and protection versus file weight and direct editability.
Okay, so we've imported photos, scaled them, protected them, and blended them. But everything we've discussed relies on bringing in existing pixels, photos taken by a camera. But this software isn't just an arrangement engine, it's an algorithmic creation tool. Here's where it gets really interesting. We want to put a sky behind our pineapple, but we don't have a photo of a sky. We are going to generate a sky entirely out of digital thin air.
This represents a massive conceptual leap. We are going to use procedural generation. First, we need a blank, physical space.
So we select the background layer, navigate to the very bottom of the Layers panel, and click the Create a New Layer button. It looks like a small square with a folded corner.
Exactly. A completely empty, totally transparent sheet of digital film appears in our SAC. We double-click its name and type clouds.
But it's totally empty right now. It contributes zero visual data.
To fill it, we turn to the software's filter engine, specifically the render category. But the render filter needs variables to work with. In the main tool panel, usually on the left of your screen, there are two overlapping colored squares. These define your active foreground color and background color.
The default is usually a black square over a white square, right?
Right. We click the foreground square, which opens the color picker dialog. We need a specific sky blue. Instead of guessing, we can input exact coordinate data.
The RGB values.
Exactly. The RGB color space uses values from 0 to 255. We set red to 48, green to 138, and blue to 174. The software instantly generates a rich, atmospheric cerulean blue. We leave the background color square as pure white.
Okay, we have our variables locked in, blue and white.
Now with our empty clouds layer selected, we navigate to the top menu, choose Filter, then Render, and finally Clouds.
And boom, the entire empty layer is instantaneously filled with a completely organic, highly realistic pattern of soft blue sky and fluffy white cumulus clouds. It looks incredibly photographic. How on earth did it build that from two solid color blocks in a fraction of a second?
It is executing a mathematical algorithm based on Perlin noise.
Perlin noise.
Yeah, Ken Perlin originally developed this type of procedural noise algorithm for the movie Tron in the early 1980s to generate natural-looking textures on computer-generated surfaces.
Oh wow, Tron's.
Yeah. The software creates a randomized fractal grid of mathematical vectors and then interpolates smooth gradients between them, using your chosen blue and white as the extreme ends of the color spectrum.
So it's literally generating organic chaos through complex mathematics.
Yes, and because it's procedural, every single time you run the filter, the mathematical seed changes. You will never get the exact same cloud formation twice.
It's a completely unique, royalty-free sky generated on demand.
And because we intentionally place this new layer directly above our background but below our pineapple, it instantly serves as the perfect atmospheric backdrop for our entire composite scene.
That drastically changes how you view asset gathering. You don't always have to spend hours on stock photo sites if you know how to leverage the software's internal math.
Absolutely.
All right, our environment is built. We have skies, beaches, flowers, and fruit. But this is a postcard. A postcard needs to communicate a literal message. We need typography. We need words.
Typography introduces an entirely new class of layer into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
The vector layer.
So far, we've been dealing entirely with raster data, pixels. A photograph is just a massive grid of tiny colored squares.
Right. If you zoom in far enough on a digital photo of an eye, the curve of the pupil breaks down into jagged, stair-stepped blocks of color.
That is the fundamental limitation of raster graphics. They are resolution dependent.
But text operates on vector mathematics. When you select the horizontal type tool, the capital T in your toolbar, and click anywhere on the canvas, the software does not ask you to create a new pixel layer. It automatically generates a specialized type layer.
You can spot them instantly in the Layers panel because the thumbnail isn't a tiny picture of the text. It's just a large, crisp letter T.
Because a type layer isn't storing a grid of colored squares. It is storing a mathematical equation. When you type the word HYEI, the software records the font file data, which dictates the geometric Bezier curves of the letter forms.
It records the kerning, the leading, the point size, and the color.
Yes.
Why the distinction? Why not just immediately turn the letters into pixels?
Because of editability and scaling. If the text was instantly rasterized into pixels and you noticed you misspelled HYEI, you couldn't just click the word and hit the backspace key.
Right, you would have to take an eraser tool, scrub out the pixelated mistake, and draw new pixels.
Because the type layer stores the mathematical equation, it remains infinitely editable. You can come back 3 years later, double-click the T icon, highlight the word, and change the font from a bold sans serif to an elegant script.
And the scaling benefit is massive. Because it's a math equation, you can use free transform to scale the word Hawaii up to the size of a real-world billboard.
The software simply recalculates the curve equations for the larger area, resulting in utterly flawless razor-sharp edges without a single pixelated stair-step in sight.
It is the ultimate non-destructive element. So for our postcard, we generate two type layers. A massive, bold Hawaii title and a smaller subtitle layer reading Island Paradise positioned right below it.
But here we hit a compositing wall. We have mathematically perfect text, but it's totally flat. It feels like it was digitally stamped over the photograph.
It lacks physical dimension. If this were a real physical diorama, the letters would cast shadows. They would have depth. We need to lift the typography off the page, and that introduces one of the most famously abused features in the entire software ecosystem, layer styles.
Layer styles, often referred to as layer effects, are non-destructive dynamic special effects that are parametrically linked to the alpha channel boundaries of a specific layer.
Okay, that is a very dense definition. Let's unpack it with an example. We want the text island paradise to look like it's physically floating an inch above the pineapple and the beach.
We select the Island Paradise type layer and navigate to the bottom of the Layers panel, clicking the Phonex icon. This opens the layer style dialog. We select Drop Shadow.
Instantly, a soft, dark shadow appears underneath the text. But we aren't just turning on a static sticker. The dialog box provides a control panel for the physics of that shadow.
You are basically directing a digital lighting environment. The angle dial lets you rotate the global light source, say, placing the sun at exactly 120 degrees to match the lighting in the pineapple photograph.
And the distance slider controls how far the layer is floating from the background, right? Increasing distance pulls the shadow further away.
Exactly. And the really crucial ones for realism are size and spread. Size dictates the softness or blur of the shadow edge. A shadow cast from an nth away is sharp. A shadow cast from a foot away disperses and becomes incredibly soft.
The software executes all of this math dynamically based on the shape of the letters. If you change the text from island to tropical, the software instantly recalculates the perimeter and redraws the shadow to match the new word. You don't have to erase the old shadow and paint a new one.
And you can stack these effects. While we have that dialog box open for the drop shadow, we can also click the checkbox for stroke.
This applies a colored border wrapping exactly around the edge of the typography.
Yes. The text suggests adding a 4-pixel green stroke to make the letters pop against the background. So now we have one mathematical type layer, generating a precise outline and calculating complex shadow physics simultaneously.
When you look back at the Layers panel under the Island Paradise layer, you now see a slightly indented list. Effects, followed by stroke and drop shadow. Each of these has its own eyeball icon.
You can toggle the shadow off independently of the text. You can double-click the word stroke to reopen the dialog and change the color to orange. It is ultimate flexibility.
However, I have to play the cynic here. Anyone who browsed the internet in 1999 or 2004 remembers the plague of layer styles.
Oh, the GeoCities era.
Exactly. Every amateur forum signature was dominated by massive, shiny text with harsh bevels, neon strokes, and pitch black drop shadows. It is so easy to click those checkboxes that people just let the software vomit effects onto the page. Isn't this just a shortcut to tacky design?
You are highlighting the difference between knowing where a button is and knowing how to design. Default settings are almost always terrible. A default drop shadow is usually a 75% opaque, pure black smudge.
Nothing in the real world casts a shadow like that unless it is illuminated by an interrogation lamp.
But the software allows for intense nuance if you know how to exploit it.
How do professionals use layer styles to avoid that 90s aesthetic?
Through layering subtlety. Instead of relying on one blunt instrument, you construct complex physics. The book highlights this as extra credit, actually. The software allows you to apply multiple instances of the same effect to a single layer.
So instead of one harsh drop shadow, a professional will apply 3 separate drop shadows in the same dialog box.
Exactly.
3 shadows for one object. Why?
To mimic ambient light, shadow 1 might be very dark, very small with 0 distance. This mimics the contact shadow, the ambient occlusion, where the object is microscopically touching the surface.
That makes sense.
Shadow 2 might have a medium distance, but a very low opacity and a wide soft spread, mimicking the general blockage of directional light.
And shadow 3?
Shadow 3 might be huge, incredibly soft, and only 5% opaque, simulating the subtle darkening of the overall atmosphere. By stacking 3 subtle mathematical calculations, you create an effect that doesn't look like a computer-generated drop shadow. It looks like a photograph of a physical object interacting with real-world light.
It's using the tool to forge reality rather than just announcing, hey, I figured out how to use Photoshop. Okay, so layer styles allow us to non-destructively alter the perimeter and the environment of a layer.
Right.
But what if we need to fundamentally alter the internal pixels of a layer? Let's look at the second flower we brought in, the Smart Object Flower 2. It looks great, but perhaps the natural purple petals clash wildly with the green and yellow color scheme of our postcard. The client wants a blue flower.
This represents the most dangerous crossroad in digital imaging, the choice between destructive and non-destructive color correction.
The intuitive, destructive method is what everyone learns first. You select the flower layer, go to the top menu, click Image, then Adjustments, then Hue Saturation. A dialog box pops up. You grab the hue slider, drag it to the left, the flower turns blue, and you hit OK.
And in doing so, you have permanently committed mathematical violence against those pixels. The software overwrites the original purple RGB data with new blue RGB data. The purple data ceases to exist.
Which seems fine, right? The client wanted blue.
It is fine until 3 days later, right before the final deadline, the client reviews the proof and says, actually, the blue feels artificial. Let's go back to the original purple, but maybe just a slightly warmer shade of purple.
And if you did the destructive, you can't. If you hit Control-Z, it's too late. You saved the file yesterday. If you try to open hue saturation and push the blue pixels back toward purple, the data degrades. The colors get muddy and artifacted.
You are forced to dig through your hard drive, find the original raw photo, import it again, resize it, reposition it, reapply the blending modes, and rebuild the entire component from scratch.
This exact scenario is why professional software engineers invented the ultimate safety net: adjustment layers.
An adjustment layer is arguably the most brilliant conceptual tool in the program.
How does it physically work?
It separates the mathematical calculation of the color correction from the actual pixel data. Instead of going to the Image menu, you go to the bottom of a Layers panel and click the icon that looks like a circle sliced in half, black and white. From that menu, you choose Hue Saturation.
And instead of just applying the effect to the flower, a brand new, completely distinct layer appears in your stack. It sits above the flower layer, named Hue Saturation 1. It has its own dedicated Properties panel.
In that panel, you drag the hue slider. You push the color spectrum until the flower turns a rich, vibrant blue. Visually on the canvas, the result is identical to the destructive method, but structurally, it is profoundly different.
Because the pixels on the Flower 2 layer have not been touched. They are still perfectly originally purple. I always explain it as a pair of deeply tinted sunglasses. If you put on blue tinted sunglasses and look at a white wall, the wall looks blue. But you haven't actually taken a bucket of paint and dyed the physical wall. You're simply viewing pristine, untouched reality through a mathematical filter.
The adjustment layer is the lens. If the client changes their mind, you don't rebuild the file. You literally just click the eyeball icon next to the Hue Saturation 1 layer to hide it, taking off the sunglasses, and the flawless high-resolution purple flower is sitting right there waiting for you.
It is absolute freedom. You can stack a curves adjustment, a color balance adjustment, and a levels adjustment, layering complex mathematical corrections on top of each other while preserving the sanctity of the raw source file beneath.
But there's a massive catch, a structural quirk that traps every single beginner. Because of the Z-axis architecture of the layers panel, an adjustment layer doesn't just look at the layer immediately below it.
Right. By default, an adjustment layer operates globally. It applies its mathematical lens to every single layer that physically resides beneath it in the panel stack.
So if we place our hue saturation adjustment layer above the flower to turn it blue, we suddenly realize the pineapple below the flower has turned a sickly radioactive green. The beach photo below the pineapple has turned violent magenta. The procedural blue clouds at the bottom of the stack have inverted into a neon orange apocalypse.
The adjustment layer is color shifting the entire universe beneath it.
Which is almost never your intended goal when making localized corrections. You need a way to tell the software to bound the mathematics, to constrain the adjustment layer so it only affects a specific target. And the mechanism for that constraint is called a clipping mask.
How do we construct a clipping mask?
The software makes it incredibly simple via the interface. While you have the Properties panel open for your hue saturation adjustment layer, look at the very bottom of that panel. There is an icon of a small square with an arrow pointing sharply downward. That is the clipping mask toggle.
When you click that button, the Layers panel physically reorganizes itself to show you what happened. The Hue Saturation 1 adjustment layer shifts slightly to the right, it indents itself. And a tiny, downward pointing arrow appears on the far left of its row, pointing directly at the Flower 2 layer immediately beneath it.
That visual indentation is the software communicating the new structural logic. The adjustment layer is no longer broadcasting its math globally down the stack. It is mathematically clipping its effect exclusively to the alpha channel boundaries of the single layer directly below it.
and the canvas instantly snaps back to reality. The pineapple goes back to being yellow, the sky goes back to blue, the beach is natural. Only the targeted flower retains the blue hue shift. It is surgical precision combined with total non-destructive flexibility.
And that precise, non-destructive logic is what allows us to manage massive, complex projects without losing our minds, which leads perfectly into a feature that separates mid-level users from high-end studio professionals: layer comps.
Layer comps are one of those panels that I feel like 90% of casual users have never even opened, but art directors live and die by them. What exactly is a layer comp?
Think of it as a master control switchboard for your layers panel. A layer comp, short for layer composition, allows you to take a snapshot of the exact current state of your entire layer architecture and save that configuration as a single clickable preset.
So it's like saving a specific arrangement of our transparent deck of cards. What specific variables does the snapshot record?
It records 3 vital parameters for every single layer in the document. 1, visibility. Is the eyeball icon turned on or off? 2, position. Where exactly is this layer located on the XY axis of the canvas? 3, appearance. Are there any layer styles applied, and what are the specific blending modes being used?
That sounds useful in theory, but give me the real-world studio application. Why take snapshots?
Imagine you were designing a high-end corporate brochure. The layout features complex background textures, multiple masked photographs, and intricate vector graphics. The client is a multinational corporation, and they need the final brochure delivered in 3 languages: English, French, and Japanese.
Okay, so you don't build 3 separate PSD files, because if the client wants to move the company logo an inch to the left, you'd have to manually open all 3 files, find the logo, and move it perfectly 3 times. You build it all in one master document.
Exactly. You have your core artwork layers. Then you create a folder in your layers panel containing all the English typography layers, another folder for the French typography layers, a third folder for the Japanese text.
And a 4th folder because the Japanese marketing team requested a slightly different background photo for cultural relevance. So this file is becoming incredibly dense.
Now imagine the client calls you on Zoom for a live review. They want to see the English version. In a world without layer comps, you have to scroll furiously through your massive layers panel. You find the French folder and click the eyeball to hide it. You hide the Japanese folder, you find the English folder and turn it on. You find the alternate background photo and turn it off.
It takes 20 seconds of awkward silence and chaotic clicking, and there's a 50% chance you leave a French subtitle accidentally turned on over the English title.
It looks completely unprofessional and wastes valuable meeting time. Now, enter layer comps. Before the meeting, you meticulously set up the file for the English layout. You open the Layer Comps panel, click the plus icon, and name the snapshot English Final.
Then you configure the file for the French layout, you save a new comp, French Final. You configure the Japanese version with the alternate photo. Save comp, Japanese Final.
And when the Zoom call starts, you never touch the Layers panel. The client says, "Let's see the Japanese layout." You go to the Layer Comps panel, click the word Japanese Final, and the entire document instantly, flawlessly reconfigures itself. Folders turn off, text swaps out, photos switch. One click.
Can we compare that to the English version? Click English Final, instant swap. It allows you to present complex, multi-variable design iterations with the speed and polish of a slideshow.
It is the ultimate tool for managing client expectations and internal version control. You can have a layer comp for pineapple with blue flower, pineapple with pink flower, and no flower at all, exploring massive design variations without ever deleting a single pixel or duplicating the master file.
It keeps the creative process fluid and organized. Okay, so we are at the finish line. The client has reviewed the layer comps. They have approved the final design of the Hawaiian vintage postcard. We have constructed a masterpiece of digital engineering. The file contains mathematically generated clouds, smart objects protecting high-resolution source data, complex blending modes simulating real-world physics, non-destructive hue saturation adjustment layers clipped precisely to specific targets, and dynamic layer styles rendering drop shadows on vector typography.
The architecture is beautiful. We are ready to ship this to the printer.
How do we prepare this intricate, fragile web of mathematics for the physical world?
We perform an act of controlled destruction. We execute a command called flattening.
Flattening, it sounds violent. What does the software actually do when you flatten an image?
When you go to the Layers panel menu and select Flatten Image, the software takes all of that beautiful separated architecture, the z-axis depth, the alpha channel transparencies, the vector equations, the blending math, and physically crushes it down into a single, opaque layer of pure pixel data. It bakes the entire cake.
Wait, I have to push back here. We have just spent the last hour meticulously detailing the philosophy of non-destructive editing. We protected our smart objects, we used adjustment layers instead of destructive color correction, we kept our text as math equations. Why, at the very end of the process, would we throw all of that away and violently compress the file into a rigid, totally uneditable block of pixels? Hard drives are cheap, we have terabytes of storage, why not just send the fully layered file out into the world?
Because the world outside of your specific workstation cannot handle the complexity of that architecture. We have to consider digital weight and print processing limitations. A complex, professional PSD file with dozens of 4K smart objects and intricate adjustment math can easily swell to 500 megabytes or even over a gigabyte in size.
That is massive for a single image.
Try uploading a gigabyte file to a clunky corporate web server. Try emailing it to a client for final approval. It will bounce back immediately.
Yeah.
But the most critical bottleneck is physical print production. If you send a 500 megabyte PSD file with 60 active layers to a commercial printing press, you are handing them a massive mathematical equation.
Their RIP software, the processor that converts your digital file into the physical cyan, magenta, yellow, and black ink dots on the printing plates, has to calculate all of your multiply blending modes, resolve your drop shadow spread algorithms, and render your vector text all on the fly while trying to school the print job.
It's asking a machine designed for printing to perform heavy mathematical rendering. And very often, the RIP software will fail. It will choke on the processing load, crash the system, or worse, misinterpret a blending mode and print a massive black square where your beautiful drop shadow was supposed to be.
Ah, so by flattening the image on your end, you do all the complex math yourself. The software resolves the equations, calculates exactly what color every final pixel should be, and spits out a simple, dumb grid of colored squares.
Precisely. A flattened TIFF or JPEG might be 5 megabytes instead of 500. It is universally readable by every image viewer, web browser, and commercial printer on the planet. Flattening is the act of translation. It translates your complex working environment into a universal delivery format.
And this feels like the most dangerous moment in the entire process. If I hit flatten image and then hit save, I have permanently overwritten my master blueprint. The layers are gone forever. If the client calls me 10 minutes after I send the file and says, "Can we nudge the Hawaiian text a quarter inch to the left?" I literally cannot do it. The text is permanently burned into the pixels of the pineapple behind it. I would have to start from scratch.
Which is why the book establishes the golden rule of saving. A workflow protocol that you've violated your own extreme peril. You never ever flatten your original working file.
What is the exact sequence of operations?
Step 1. When the design is approved, you save the master document. You ensure the PSD file is saved with all layers, smart objects, and adjustment data perfectly intact. This is your vault. Step 2. You go to the top menu and select Image, then Duplicate. The software creates a perfect, identical clone of your document in a new tab. The book instructs us to name this clone file something distinct, like zoforflat.psd.
Okay, step 3.
Step 3. You immediately close the original layered master file. You get it off your screen so you cannot accidentally save over it. Step 4. Now, working exclusively on the clone file, you choose Flatten Image. The clone collapses into a single layer. Step 5. You save as a flattened delivery format, like a JPEG or a PDF, and send that to the client or printer.
You archive the heavy, infinitely flexible master blueprint, and you distribute the lightweight, flattened copy. It is pure risk management. It guarantees that when the inevitable revision request comes in, you simply open the master blueprint, make the tweak in seconds, generate a new clone, flatten it, and send it out.
It is the only way to survive in a commercial production environment without suffering a nervous breakdown.
We have covered an incredible amount of conceptual ground today. We took a blank void and built a complex professional workflow architecture capable of generating realities.
And the most profound side effect of deeply understanding this architecture, the physics of blending modes, the z-axis of layers, the mechanics of opacity, is that it permanently alters how your brain processes the physical visual world around you.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like a matrix moment. You take the red pill of design software and you can't ever go back to seeing things normally.
It is exactly like that. Before you understand digital compositing, you walk past a massive movie poster at a bus stop. Or you look at the cover of a glossy fashion magazine, and your brain simply accepts the image as a singular, cohesive truth, a flat reality. But once you master the mechanics of layers, your brain can't help but automatically deconstruct it.
You look at that movie poster, and your eyes immediately isolate the background plate. You notice the subtle ambient occlusion the artist added using a burned-in drop shadow layer to separate the lead actor from the explosion behind them.
You see a gritty texture over a title graphic, and your brain instantly thinks, they layered a scanned concrete texture over the vector type and set the blending mode to multiply to embed the grit into the color.
You start noticing how practical light actually multiplies against physical textures in the real world, and how atmospheric haze is just a real-world opacity slider reducing contrast over distance. You stop seeing pictures and start seeing interconnected stacks of variables.
It is no longer just a piece of software you use for a job. It becomes a foundational framework for analyzing and decoding the constructed visual landscape that surrounds us every day.
You genuinely start seeing the seams in reality. It is a powerful way to observe the world. Well, if you want to start seeing those seams yourself, to stop guessing and start directing the software, I cannot recommend the source material enough. Once again, we based this deep dive on Chapter 04 of Adobe Photoshop CC Classroom in a book 2018.
It's an incredible resource.
Do yourself a massive favor. You can buy the book right now by scanning the QR code of the link provided in the description below. Get the text, open the files, and feel the math work under your own cursor. And if something clicked for you today, if the concept of the Smart Object Vault finally makes sense, or if you will never look at the multiply blending mode the same way, again, hit that follow button.
We're going to be covering so much more.
We are going to keep dissecting these massive technical systems and providing the deep dive career-building content you need to navigate the professional digital landscape. Because as we learned today, the world isn't flat. It's a deep, complex stack of layers, and you now have the blueprint to organize the chaos. Until next time,